step along the way. You indeed have benefited. I've given you this new test, all kinds of projective tests, the MMPI, et cetera, et cetera. You no longer are suffering from any illusions. Is that maximum development, like the maximum development that a physical therapist can bring you to? Or do you have to do something else to maximize that side? If so, if you go with this reasoning then there's a need for some other category here that can then take someone who is ill physically, they're brought to physical well-being, they can then be judged necessary to do some additional work to bring their psyche up so they no longer are distressed by all kinds of mental conflicts and emotional disorders. They're brought to a state of non-illness, but now they have to develop their full potential within the mind itself.
It doesn't ever happen.
Well, it happens in Brooklyn. This is the classic image of the philosopher in Plato. This is the role of the Socratic philosopher. Or, as you mentioned before, the guru or spiritual leader. Because he can't deal with someone who is ill physically. The person has to be in sufficiently good health, robust health, to endure whatever is going on. They can't have all kinds of mental conflicts about what's going on and project all over the place. So therefore it presupposes, does it not, for full functioning, that the person has gone through this and now can approach that field. If so, that brings us back to the curious problem we had before. And that is, if there is such a thing as philosophy, and if it can benefit man, using philosophy again in the Greek sense, not the modern sense, then we can look at this entire process in a new way. And that's where we're going. All right? Okay. Now, notice what we're on. We have to look at this in terms of, is there some kind of, same language as before, a knowledge then that can assess, can diagnose, can offer a treatment, can offer up a follow-up, that presupposes, therefore, that the person must voluntarily enter into the relationship and must be based upon a belief that that person does have the requisite knowledge. There is a personal risk a person must go through. That presupposes that the person who is taking on the risk is ignorant of something that may benefit him. They have to have the acceptance that that person has that knowledge, but most importantly, that everything that that person does is for their true benefit. And a person must be guided by the highest ideals, otherwise it's not going to function in that way. Has to have a highest ideal. Now, what is that ideal? What's that ideal? Because now we can say our philosopher must fit all of that, and the ideal the person must have is the ideal of the highest excellence. Highest excellence. Noblest excellence. And the kind of excellence which, when man reaches, allows him to benefit in the most important way holistically. Now, the interesting word, you see, when you're talking about the highest excellence and the noblest excellence, that is the definition of an interesting Greek word, which is arateia, or what we sometimes curiously translate as virtue. Now, very few people use this word anymore, virtue. Therefore, like other words, they've lost their original root metaphor, as they call it. We should replace it with what it means, which is a highest kind of noblest excellence, or moral excellence, or pure vision. That's virtues, because that's what the word means. In the earlier times, you could talk about the virtue of a horse without being laughed at, because the assumption is that there is a certain kind of excellence a horse may have And if you bring him to a good horse trainer should be able to draw that excellence out. If you have a good dog, all right, and you want to bring out the fullest excellence of that dog, you invite a dog trainer. Say, look here, this is my dog. What would you suggest I do? You'd have to make a diagnosis, have to set up a certain plan, try to help you deal with the dog in the most intelligible way so that you can bring out the full excellence of the dog.
That could apply to a voice teacher.
Yes.
Voice teacher is supposed to bring out the highest potential.
That's right. That's right. This is the model, isn't it?
Yeah.
And anytime anyone suspects that any of the decisions are made to benefit the practitioner rather than the subject, we would quickly say, avoid that person at all costs because they're acting in our terms unethically. So therefore, the highest ideal must be the highest and noblest sense of excellence, the kind of excellence that can benefit man most intrinsically for the fullness and the wholeness of his being. Now, that allows us to go one more step. All right, here we go. That ideal must deal with the whole. It must be a benefit. We see, and we saw a few minutes ago, how it could be applied to the political and the philosophical realm. And now we want to push it into the philosophical with our next sheet. Here's where we're going. This requires a new model. Could use more blackboards. Plato has a magnificent dialogue, the Symposium. This is a model that comes out of the Symposium I'm going to construct. It deals with the whole of which man is a part. It deals with everything we've been talking about. Let me bring it to you first. Man, you see, man is a part of this vast and strange and mysterious thing called reality. The whole of which man is a member, all right, has the nature of, I should call it first, the divine, the mortal. Man is mortal. The God or gods are divine. That's also, therefore, the realm of the intelligible. Man deals with what we're going to call opinion, and I'll get into that in a moment. All right. Now, between these two extremes, these are extremes, there is a mean. And of course, all Greek philosophy and all Greek metaphysics has only one basic core idea. And you often see it, and when you're dealing with it, you should always look for it, and that is the mean analogy. Now, we dealt with that when we were into Proclus, Proposition 148. Remember when we dealt with that? But basically, the mean analogy is A is to B as B is to C. Another way of putting that, these are the two extremes. We can represent it algebraically as A is to AB, as BA is to B. These are the extremes, these are the means. The reason this is so basic and central to Greek thought is that they have one idea which dominates their thought, and that's the idea of participation. As this approaches this and participates in it, that participated part can be understood as a mean analogy. A, B. The part participating, that's the doctrine participation. Sometimes it's called sharing, sometimes it's called participation. Therefore, between these two